All right, welcome back to Draws and Fades, episode 129, preview of the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines in San Diego, California. I'm your host, Owen Vrabel, joined by my co-host, Matthew Miller.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back.
Welcome back. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Rotoballer. Make sure to check out all of our awesome staff content over there at rotoballer.com/PGA. We got everything, DFS, outrights, matchup betting, anything you want in the golf betting market, you can find it there. This week, we'll get into a brief recap of the American Express. Awesome story. Nick Dunlap, amateur, wins, major long shot winner again, which came at the expense of more pain and heartbreak for myself, but that's to be expected in the golf betting world. And I'm definitely not alone to start the year with some outright pain. We'll preview Torrey Pines, 2 courses this week, the North and South. The South is where we'll see 3 or 4 rounds and being the more difficult course. We'll get into the odds list on FanDuel, give you our best outright picks of the week, give you some long shots and my one and done thoughts at the end of the episode. So yeah, let's just jump into it and just rip the Band-Aid off here. Sam Burns, pretty painful stuff. That type of moment when you're on the wrong side of something really awesome happening is the fucking worst. So like if I had no dog in the fight, I would have been like, this is so cool. Like freaking 20-year-old sophomore in college winning on the PGA Tour in a birdie fest, but with some significant names. He was in the last group of Justin Thomas and Sam Burns. I mean, 2 pretty prolific winners on the PGA Tour. So yeah, I was obviously not rooting for Dunlap, and he was pretty nails all day. I mean, Burns played so conservative for most of the day, and I mean, just didn't make birdies on a couple of the par 5s. Really didn't like go at a lot of pins, which was kind of fine because he ended up making some 15 to 20 footers and did sneak in some birdies. I mean, he was 5 under when they got to the 17th hole and he was tied for the lead, and he couldn't have asked for really a better position. It was really just him and Dunlap. There were a couple guys chasing, and obviously Bezadenhout ended up finishing at 28 under. But when Dunlap teed up on 17, I was like, I'm actually kind of happy that he's going first. Like he has more pressure on him technically now. Although I guess if Burns had gone first and hit the green, maybe the pressure would have been more. But I was in shock to see him rinse one on 17 so badly. Especially like Burns, unlike a lot of other like tough losses I've had, Burns, I mean, I've been on most of his wins, and usually when he's in contention, he's pretty nails. So just a shocking turn of events. And congratulations to Nick Dunlap, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have really a dog in the fight there. Obviously, I wanted to see you hit a winner, but the Dunlap story was significantly cooler for me not having, financial gain from Burns.
Yeah.
It was weird because like for a while it looked like, okay, he's going to fall off. Like he was in neutral for a while, Dunlap. He did a double bogey, then he birdied 2, and he was like kind of even, I think, through 9, and Burns had like a 1-shot lead, but he was still hanging in there. And then he made a couple of like really big birdie putts to stay in the mix, and he tied Burns on 16. He made birdie, right? From like
the par 5.
8 feet or something like that, 10 feet.
But, yeah.
And then it was like, but then it still felt like, head to head, like Burns was going to win. You felt like the moment was going to be too big for Dunlap, and Burns putting it in the water on 17 was shocking. And then I was waiting for the all-time heartbreak though, because if Dunlap wasn't going to win, obviously I wanted you to win. But when Burns went in the water and then he drove it into the water on 18 and was done, and then Dunlap went way right, and then Seabass made birdie, and it was like, oh shit, if Dunlap makes bogey on this, like this is going to a playoff, and like he's probably going to fall apart. Like this is a disaster. And he got like crazy lucky on his approach that rolled down next to the green. I mean, that could have ended up way worse. And he said at that point when he hit that, he thought he had a 2-shot lead.
Yeah.
Which is the announcers kind of wild, right? Like I guess it's not a scoreboard, but I feel like, I mean, it's granted he's an amateur, his caddy's, an amateur caddy, but like I feel like you kind of have to know the situation.
I don't think you, but like that's just kind of how it is, though. I mean, walking off the 17th green, he's playing with Burns. Maybe the last time he saw a leaderboard was maybe, I don't know, 16th green. I don't know if they had a leaderboard on the 17th.
But like, did Seabass finish before they teed off?
No, or he was probably on the green. Like,
I guess Burns had to re-tee.
Yeah, I mean, it all happened like relatively quick. So, yeah, I mean,
like he was obviously down to the right and like had a hill in front of him and everything like that. But you think like, I mean, I guess you don't want to say anything if you're like another player, but it's kind of like, the guy could ask like what happened up there. Like,
yeah, but if you even like if you're a fan, like you wouldn't necessarily know. Like you were thinking like it's going to be between Burns and Dunlap. So like even unless you were watching Seabez, you would have and you would be up by the green. Yeah, like true. Maybe word had gotten back that Seabez had birdied, but even people that were standing on the 18th tee box may not have known what happened. Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, fucking crazy. Back-to-back weeks with guys leading in the final round and just shitting the bed. This was significantly worse than Henley, but yeah.
Yeah, this had to feel worse, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because I was thinking too, I mean, honestly, yeah, it felt like dead when he hit it in the water on 17, but he had been putting so well, and he almost made that putt for bogey, which would have significantly, I think, would have kept him in it. I mean, who knows if Dunlap makes because again, I guess he found out he needed to make it when he got up closer to the green, but still playing with the guy who would have been one stroke back instead of two strokes back would have been completely different. But his approach shot after he hit it in the water, he spun it way back to like 20 something feet. It was like just a disaster. And I mean, I can relate, but I can imagine like you're winning a golf tournament. This 20-year-old kid makes birdie on a par 5 that you should have made birdie on. Now you're tied. And then you put one in the water, like rebounding from that in the moment is probably extremely difficult. So it really was over as soon as he did that. But yeah, it's crazy. 33 years since Phil won as an amateur. So pretty cool, pretty shitty for me, but pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty impressive to stand over that 6-footer.
Yeah, but it's the whole day, really. I mean, like that was the culmination, and honestly, I was gonna say too, like this is why Burns like played conservative and like Dunlap had chances to make birdies on that back 9 that Burns didn't really give himself those looks. Like Dunlap had better looks into holes. He also hit that flag stick on 14 or 15 and rolled back, and then JT gave him the line, and he still missed that putt. Like it was the way that it all turned out. Like when he was missing a couple of those putts, I was like, all right. Like the nerves are getting to him a little bit. But yeah, just wasn't meant to be. And you asked me last week how I thought about if the long shot narrative was going to continue or not. And I was pretty confident it wasn't. And I mean, if you look at the rest of the top of the leaderboard, it was bigger name guys. Obviously, Seabez was pretty popular. He was probably like, I don't know, 50 to 70 to 1. I'm not exactly sure where he went off at, maybe a little bit higher. But then like Xander played really well on Sunday. Obviously JT was in the final group, Burns. So it certainly makes me more inclined to throw a few shekels on some longer shots in general on the PGA Tour right now. But I'm still feeling like someone of a bigger name is going to play well this week and win this tournament.
Do you think there's anything to like, I guess this is, I mean, not that the MX typically draws like a ton of big names, but Jon Rahm did play there previously. And like, do you think there's something to the fact that now that we've seen a decent amount of fairly big names go to live, like and you have the elevated events now to combat that, like some of these events, the top names just aren't that elite. So, like, you look at the Sony field when, like, Grayson Murray.
I mean, the MX had a pretty good field.
We talked about the leaders at the guys going off at, like, 12 to 1, and it's like, you know, a Matt Fitzpatrick or, you know, someone who's not necessarily a prolific winner. Like, who knows if Rahm's in that field? He probably closes it out on Sunday if he's in the mix. You know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe. But that's the kind of event, though, that, like, that the reason that Dunlop it's an easier course, so there's less challenges and less things to get in the way. Obviously, there's water available for penalty, and he put one in the water earlier today. But yeah, I mean, Scheffler was there, Xander and Cantlay were there, JT obviously, and then Burns, who's like I said, a pretty prolific winner on the PGA Tour, and just couldn't get it done. So it's just it's a birdie fest. It's a crapshoot. So
what do you think about this week? Are we getting another
yeah,
long shot, or is it?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to take a few longer shots this week, but I do think that there's a pretty straightforward approach to this week. I think it's a more difficult test than what we've seen so far. It's kind of like we're getting into a legitimate PGA Tour event with a legit field, and it's a tough test that you can't really luck your way into being in the mix come the weekend. So with that being said, let's get into it. Torrey Pines, San Diego, very famous course, been on the PGA Tour a lot. We saw it at the US Open 2021. Can be a very difficult test. Like I mentioned, 2 courses in North and South. The South is the more difficult of the 2, the longer of the 2. And that's where we'll see 3 of the 4 rounds. But why don't you give us a little more info on that, and then we'll get into the odds board.
Yeah, North Course, you play one of the first 2 days there, and then if you make the cut, it's all on the South Course. 7,258 yards, public greens, and then the South Course plays up to 7,800 yards. Much longer, longest course on the regular PGA Tour rotation each year. So definitely going to be a test for these guys. Also, there has been a steady rain in the San Diego area that's being reported. So
I can attest. I'm in LA and it's been raining a lot. And then I've obviously seen some tweets too in San Diego. That area has been like under flood watch. So, and it floods so easily out here because it just doesn't rain that much. So it's going to be damp.
Yeah. So, I mean, the longest course on the PGA Tour rotation now being wet just makes it even longer.
Yep.
So that's
today was super shitty out. So, we haven't mentioned. Sorry to interrupt you. We haven't mentioned that it starts on Wednesday this week. So less time for for it to kind of dry out. And obviously we're in January here, so it's not super hot. So yeah, it's gonna be wet. It's gonna be play super long, and I don't know. Maybe we'll see some lift clean in place. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that would kind of suck, but it might kind of be trending that way.
But it's still like you need to hit the fairway for that. So
yeah, true. Yeah, well, we'll get into all that good stuff. But last year, Max Homa won -13. We were on that win the year prior. Luke List won at -15. You had a nice live bet on that 40 to 1. Yeah, there you go. And then the year prior, Patrick Reed won at -14. I was on that. So this has been a great tournament for the boys.
Yes. Yes.
We're hoping
we need the good vibes, so we need that.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a week that we're hoping for on the schedule, it's this one to get back in the winner's circle. So that's what we're going to do this week. Just kind of a little bit of how they all got there. Max Homa last year gained 8.4 strokes on approach, 4.6 putting. The top 5 all gained at least 4 strokes on approach. So basically, the profile of this course, I mean, because it's so long and it is difficult, it's really a place where if you're not hitting your irons well, you have no chance to play well here. You need to have a good iron game this week, and you also have to be able to putt. So have a good putting week. 19 of the top 20 gained strokes putting last year. I mean, this is one of those courses where you're going to have a good amount of 5 to 10 foot par putts that you just need to save throughout the week. It's certainly not anywhere near you just stick it to 2 feet and whatever. You're gonna have to scramble your way around if you want to win. It's a real kind of grind it out type of event. When Luke List won, he gained 3.7 strokes putting. Not really someone you typically expect to gain a ton of strokes putting. So that was, it's what's tough about an event like this because it's kind of hard to tell who's going to come with the putter and who's not. And then Patrick Reed, when he won at -14, he actually didn't even hit his irons that well, which is kind of an anomaly here to win. But if you remember, I mean, he just got up and down from everywhere.
That's his specialty. Yeah.
Yeah, and he did perhaps give himself a better lie one time with an embedded lie.
Shocker.
On that drop. But, him and the PGA Tour professionals said he handled the situation perfectly. I believe him.
Yeah. I remember that actually. He went, looked at it, picked his fucking ball up out of the rough, and it was like, it's embedded. See? And everyone's like, dude. So it's a classic Patrick Reed, but that's a good point that the style of winner here you can get away with, being more of a scrambler if you just are immaculate all week with that. So
Yeah, you have to be. I mean, it takes a lot to win here without having a good iron week. But we've seen a lot of these winners, and I mean, I think the big thing here on this course, because it is so challenging and you have to scramble around a lot, even no matter how good you are with your irons, is that the winners have all putted really well. Even going back to when Mark Leishman won, he gained 8 strokes putting. So Reed gained 4.5. Homa last year gained 4.6. Luke List gained 3.7. Of the last 4 winners, that's the worst putting week we've had. So you kind of have to bring a good putter this week, and obviously that's kind of the stat that's fluctuating most week to week per player. But you're going to need a guy who you can depend on, standing over a 6-7 footer come Sunday.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough test. Like it's really difficult to hit the fairways here. It's long, regardless if you're in the fairway or in the rough. So you need to be strong, long iron player. The greens are relatively small, and the POA greens. I mean, we don't see a ton of them. Like the West Coast POA, we're going to see a few of them. This is when you see them on the West Coast swing, and you don't see a lot of them. A lot of guys don't have a ton of experience here, and that's why the California narratives and the guys who played college golf in California or on the West Coast, those kind of get thrown out there a lot. And, I think there's something to be said about that in terms of just comfortability putting on that. And then the Luke List year, he gains 3.5 strokes putting, and he did putt really well. But I think those stats also not get skewed, but there's a ton of guys who are 3-putting and putting like shit all week. So, if you're just 2-putting most greens, you're going to be gaining strokes on the field. And like you mentioned, those 5 to 10 footers for par are going to be huge. Anything from 20 feet in, if you're making any of those, you're feeling pretty good about it. So, yeah, I'm feeling guys that hit the ball long, especially since it's going to be wet this week. Guys who have hit their long irons well, and then guys who play well on difficult courses and tests of these kind of caliber. Which I think you could probably you could stretch it and spin zone your way into some other guys who maybe haven't quite done that yet, but in theory should be able to play well at a course like this. But yeah, it's going to be a good week. It's a nice stretch of golf here. I like the California swing. And then we got
this is when it kind of starts to get fun and good, and you have some really good tournaments. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been, it's nice to get back into the season, but this is kind of when you start to see better style events and more better courses.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this week I like a lot. Pebble Beach next week is cool, but the 3-course rotation kind of turns me off, and it's the Pro-Am, so it's kind of similar to last week. And then depending on kind of the weather and how the courses are playing, really dictates how interesting that event is going to be. But usually come Sunday, Pebble Beach delivers a pretty good viewing experience. And then obviously we have Super Bowl Sunday with the Phoenix Open, which is a non-elevated event this year, but still expect to get a pretty good turnout there. And that's actually what should be interesting for next week. We don't typically see a ton of big name players. We haven't seen in at least the past few years some big, strong fields at Pebble Beach. So, and our guy Daniel Berger's back, which is nice. We didn't really touch on that, but he also plays well at Pebble Beach. So,
yeah, we won on him at Pebble Beach a few years back. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure we'll get into Berger more, as we go on. But it's interesting to kind of figure out what to do with him, what to make of him. Pretty strong showing though last week for the first time playing in
yep,
18 months. No, even more than that.
Yeah, around that 18, 19 months.
Yeah.
And then after Waste Management, we go to Riviera, which should also have another strong field. So it's a good stretch here. Like the California swing. Let's get into the odds list on FanDuel and get back into the winner's circle at the Farmers Insurance. So I don't love the odds board this week, just to preface. I mean, you don't often see what we're going to see here. We have 4 guys under 12-1 currently on FanDuel, which is Xander at 9-1, Colin at 11, Morikawa, that is, Patrick Cantlay at 11, and Max Homa at 12-1. So we got 4 guys under 12-1, and then a pretty big gap to 20-1, in which we only have 7 or 8 guys under 40. So 12 guys under 40. And it all starts at the top with clearly the more elite players getting a lot of respect here. And they all kind of have some ties to California. Obviously, Homa, former champion, Xander, San Diego guy, Morikawa, California guy. And like we were talking offline, Cantlay playing here does feel a little weird because he doesn't typically play here. But that's the top of the board. I mean, I've thought about it, but I'm not betting up here. We typically don't unless we're feeling super confident and have conviction on the top of the board. But what were your thoughts when you first saw this?
Yeah, strange event for Cantlay to participate in, especially with the elevated event next week, Pebble, that he always plays. So it kind of felt weird seeing his name here. I'm not taking any of these guys either. It's just I don't know. Homa, I guess we like. I'm sure we would both say we like his fit here. He obviously won last year. We're very interested to be on him, and it paid off. And he plays well at the tough courses. He's really good in California. Seeing him at 12-1 is crazy. I know he's gotten better, but this is even when he's like high up on the odds list. He's still like 22, 25 typically, unless he's at like the Fortinet or something and there's no one else there. Right. Seeing him 12-1 in this type of event's really tough to swallow. I don't think I can get there as much as Homa's been good to us.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe you could look for him live. He has a bad Thursday, but yeah, none of these numbers are appealing enough. When I think there are some, like I said, I don't really love the board, but there are some decent numbers a little bit further down. And I mean, I don't know if you would agree with this or not, but Homa pretty similar to Sam Burns. I mean, not a ton of major success, but have proven they can win. But like 12-1 is just crazy. I mean, obviously I know he's a former champ, but it's like Homa is appealing to me when he's at 30 to 40-1.
Yeah, our favorite time to bet Homa is when it's like a full field and he's like 35-1 because he's one of those guys that he is. I mean, he can go toe to toe with some bigger names, not in majors we haven't seen,
right?
But really every other like big event, he, here he's won, Riviera he's won, and he's taken down some pretty good players. And he is kind of a closer once he gets outside of the majors, but it's also weird because he's not like statistically that elite guy. Like it's not like every week he's top fiving and he's it just doesn't feel like he should be like the top dog. That hasn't ever really been what he is.
This is kind of actually scary to a degree. I mean, kind of seems like the Max Homa days of getting a good number at courses that fit him well are not going to happen anymore. So
yeah, although like what, I feel like we've had this discussion a few times and then he like dips back down.
I mean, this is a California course, so we got him at 40-1 last year, right? Or was it 20? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but like we don't have Rahm here.
But that's the thing is that this might be the new reality. I mean, except for the elevated events, which we will get some elevated. Well, we'll see what he's at Riviera. Basically,
yeah, that'll be a good.
If he wins this week or plays well this week, his number at Riviera is going to suck too. So.
Yeah, if he wins this week, we're not going to be able to take him anymore.
Yeah, we're just going to have to pray that he plays well in a major.
Yeah, we'll have to pray for the Homa fall off. He's been so good to us, but it's
all right, but yeah, I mean, I'll say I think Homa, Morikawa, and Xander all scare me to a degree this week. Cantlay not as much, but he never really does, and but I will be surprised if all four of them are not relevant come the weekend. I think one of them at the very least will be in the mix because again, this is kind of a grinded out type style course, and these guys are elite for a reason. They have well-rounded games that can, come battle tested for this type of event. So. Since we're not doing anything up there, let's get to the next range, which is really 20 to, I'll say 45, 50. We'll go 20 to 50. We got Minwoo Lee, Sung Jae Im, Ludwig, Tony Finau, Jason Day, Keegan Bradley. Those guys are all between 20 and 30 on FanDuel. We've seen some pretty quick movement this week as well because, I mean, maybe because the event starts on Wednesday, people are firing their bets off a little more quickly. It seems like a little bit more movement in this section than we typically get. Sahith Theegala at 35, Eric Cole at 40, Sepp Straka, Meronk, Harris English between 45 and 50. So pretty good little mid-tier here. But as we kind of chatted about offline today, this is like, and I mean, maybe I say this often, but it seems like these guys all in my brain feel like they're more applicable if they're like 5 to 10 points higher.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more value. But I mean, that being said, there's obviously there's not a plenty. I mean, there's few veterans in here. Finau, Day, Bradley all have tons of PGA Tour success. And then some young guys who haven't played a ton at this event, Minwoo, Ludwig. I mean, even Eric Cole, who's been hot. He just keeps playing well. So this has been the most difficult part of the board for me right now because I know I want to take multiple guys and I have a few different thoughts, but haven't pulled the trigger on anyone yet. Because once you get over 50, I do have some thoughts on some longer shot guys, but the confidence level is not very high. So I feel like you got to take some shots here in this range. The most likely guys to kind of be able to compete with the 4 we just had mentioned. So I'll let you tee it off for our first pick of the week. Who you got?
I'm taking Keegan.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
That's kind of surprising.
He's sitting at 30 right now. I signed him at 33 a little bit earlier, but yeah, it's weird. I mean, I'm not a Keegan guy really at all. But you look at this range and it's like, I didn't know what to do. I mean, truth be told, I would love to take Minwoo, but 20 to 1 I mean, I like him and he's easy to root for, but 20 to 1 feels like just not great value. I feel like Keegan Bradley, not that he's like a dog or like a closer by any stretch, but like he has won each of the last 2 years on the PGA Tour. He has a major. Like I feel like he's way more battle tested and proven than some of these other young guys, and you're getting him 10 points higher.
He's also like 40 years old.
I don't think he's 40, but
I mean,
look up his age.
He's considerably older than Minwoo Lee.
He's definitely older than Minwoo Lee, but like
he's 37.
37, yeah, he's a young cat.
Yeah.
Still got some years left in him.
He's got a lot more experience for sure.
Yeah, but wouldn't you like some experience at a tough course?
Yeah, I mean, well, we'll see because I also like Minwoo Lee this week. I haven't placed any bets yet, but
let me talk to you to Keegan.
I hear what you're saying. All right, go for it. I just feel like this is a bad number for Keegan.
No, I mean it's not a good number, but I think there's a lot to like about him because he gained 4.1 on approach last time we saw with the Sony, where he came in second. He came second here last year. He was 16th in 2020, and he finished inside the top 5 in 2017 and 2018. So that even though he's like a Northeast guy, this is a course that he plays well at. Talk about long irons. He was 15th on tour last year, approach 200 plus. So he's got the long iron game going. Proven winner. I mean, not the best number, especially considering we were talking about him at 50, 60 to 1 range at the Sony a couple weeks ago and probably a little bit worse of a field. But I do think he's a pretty good fit here, and I don't think it's the worst value in this range.
Yeah, that's fair. And like we kind of just mentioned, I feel like none of these are really great value. It's kind of like a feel play. Who do you think is going to play well this week? Because none of these numbers really – I guess we got to get used to kind of Minwoo, Sungjae, and Ludwig being in the 20s, even in pretty good fields like we're seeing this week. So, yeah, I don't love the Keegan play, but I understand where you're coming from because I will say my worries – because I'll be honest, right now I'm between Minwoo, Ludwig, and Finau. I think everyone on this podcast, listeners, know I don't love betting on Tony Finau, but we've kind of gotten past that a little bit.
I wish I could play some clips of you previously talking about Tony Finau.
Yeah, we need a keyboard of just old clips of bashing on Finau. But, I mean, Minwoo and Ludwig are like to a T perfect players for this type of course and event. I mean, they're both extremely long off the tee. Both have long iron games. And then Minwoo, I thought it was hilarious. I think it was either Saturday or Sunday. The announcers just would not stop talking about Minwoo's short game. It was actually out of control. They were glazing him so hard that they were like, yeah, I think he might be better than Seve, all said and done. I was like, I mean, guys, what? This is his first year at the PGA Tour. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. But at the same time, I'm like, he is pretty good. And I do love Minwoo. We've talked about it. So that I feel a little hesitation with taking two young guys who haven't played this event before. And And the interesting part, I feel a little bit more confident in Minwoo because I feel like he's played in some bigger DP World Tour events at the very least.
Well, he finished top 5 at LACC U.S. Open last year.
Yeah,
which is a tough West Coast course.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then I think Minwoo, I just feel like he's super well rounded.
He's also just so likable. And now he's got like the Lululemon deal going. Like I feel like he's always smiling out there. He's easy to root for. I'll give him that. I like him. I don't like not picking him, but it is kind of a wild number to see him at.
Yeah, agreed. So I feel like I'm leaning towards taking Minwoo and potentially leaving Ludwig on the bench. But it's interesting. Ludwig's going to be interesting this year because we haven't really seen him play any of the bigger, tougher events yet. Obviously, he has already a win on tour at the RSM. He has multiple other top fives and has just been super consistent since he came on the tour. But I feel like Minwoo is a little bit more battle tested for something like this. So I'm going to go there. And then I think begrudgingly, to a degree, I'm going to take Finau. I guess similar to your Keegan thought, Finau, veteran, has gotten those monkeys off his back in terms of being able to close tournaments. And then this is a course that he has played extremely well at. He has 5 top 10s, 4 top 6s, finished 9th here last year. And he's actually been a well above average putter at this location. So I do think this is a pretty good week to get on Finau. And I missed the better numbers, I'll say. And we really haven't seen because Finau got super hot in 2022 and in 2023 he cooled off a little bit, won that irrelevant Mexico Open, played pretty poorly.
Shout out to people in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, played pretty poorly in the bigger events last year. It has seemed to a degree a little bit underwhelming to kind of start this year. But with the guys that are around him, I do feel pretty good about taking Tony here. So I think I'm just going to do it. Again, I haven't pulled the trigger on either of these, but Finau, again, long off the tee. And it's weird. I mean, if you look at driving distance stats, he really isn't technically metrically like one of the longer players, but I think it's because he probably doesn't hit driver all the time. I mean, if he really lets one rip, he can be extremely long. Can play well with his long irons. We know his putting struggles at times, but like I said, he's putt well here. And yeah, I mean, he's actually cleaned up the rest of it. Like his around the green game is above average. Like he's just an above average player. So like in every metric you can look at. So I do like Finau, even though it kind of stings to say that. So here we are, Finau. I think I kind of think I've made up my mind there. Minwoo.
So not to change your mind at all, but it is interesting with Ludwig. I mean, we haven't really seen. You're right. We haven't seen him really at like a test like this. There's no really saying how he's going to handle, having to scramble around and stuff like that. But theoretically, this would be kind of like a perfect course for him, right? Where he's just like long and straight off the tee. I mean, seems like the type of course that he would play well at.
Yeah, and actually, I was going to mention this. I think if you are interested in Minwoo or Ludwig, but worried about the fact that they haven't played here, I mean, Zalatoris is a pretty good example of both here and the Genesis, 2 tougher tracks, California tracks, and he kind of stepped in and was top 20 pretty quickly. And then obviously he went to a playoff with Luke List a couple of years ago. So young guys can definitely play well here. It's not like a strategically fundamental course. Like you just need to be long and straight off the tee and have good long irons and have a good putting week. And if you're not, then like Patrick Reed or Snedeker, you need to be immaculate around the green. So I guess Minwoo in my theory there, a little bit better short game. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think we're just going to have to expect Ludwig at these numbers. So
yeah, it's kind of, I mean, maybe it's not nuts, but it does feel kind of nuts. Like right.
Yeah, it definitely, no, it feels nuts. Yeah. But this whole 20 to 50 range feels a little crazy. So Jason Day, I'm not taking, but has played well here. Plays well on POA. I guess he really hasn't looked great recently.
Yeah, it's weird that he's at. I mean, this is just a straight course history and like number, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's won twice here. Like I said, if you're looking for guys that play well at this course, Jason Day is going to pop up very quickly. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, because he similar to like I guess Ricky Fowler, he kind of had a big bounce back last year and a half, and it's hard to say if he's like fully back. I mean, he's back, but now is he just kind of? I don't know. It's like 30-1. It's kind of tough.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, he's definitely better than he was a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he seems to be getting over his vertebrae thing, which is good.
Wait, what'd you say?
Well, he seems to be getting over the whole vertebrae problem, which is good.
No, vertigo, dude.
Vertigo. Yeah, vertigo. Where he would just pass out like in the middle of the round.
Yeah. I was actually just gonna mention that. Then
people were like pissed to be playing with him. Like, dude, he's just gonna pass out again.
Yeah. He seemed to have gotten over that. Yeah, and I guess we're not that far removed. He won the Byron Nelson in May last year, and he did finish second at the Open. So I guess he hasn't missed a cut. He hasn't missed a cut since June of last year, but he hasn't only played like 7 or 8 events. But all right, yeah, maybe I'm being a little too critical. I mean, he finished 10th at the Century Tournament Champions.
Well, there was only I guess there was a bigger field this year.
Yeah, I mean, top 10 is top 10. I mean, but all right, we're not taking them, so who cares? Anyone else 20 to 50 on your radar?
I'm leaning thinking about taking Sahith Theegala here.
Yeah.
He said it was 40-1 earlier. Second at the Century to start the year. Kind of had a chance there at the end, but obviously missed the putt. But I do like that across the board, he's just pretty good statistically at everything. I like his putting stats long term. In his last 5, he gained 2.8. Over his last 5 tournaments, he has gained 2.8 strokes putting. But you go back to the last 10, he's gained 2.6. Go back to the last 20, he's gained 1.7. He's pretty solid baseline putting when you talk about a guy who's going to need to make, a bunch of 10-footers or, 7-footers this week. I feel pretty comfortable with him with the putter. He got his first win at the Fortinet in the fall. Obviously, that's not anything close to, what it's going to take to win this week, but I do like him getting one across the finish line. And he's got pretty good history here. He was 4th here last year, 25th 2 years ago in his 2 attempts here. So he seems to kind of play well on this West Coast swing. So I'm going to take a shot at Sahith this week. Not really the best number, but I'm kind of intrigued to see what he could do. I mean, I think there's a lot of unproven guys, floating around this range. So I'll take a shot at him as the, sort of unproven winner down here.
Yeah, I like it. I've been thinking about Theegala, and depending on how the rest of my card shakes out, I could see myself adding him. He, like you mentioned, he putts pretty well on the California swing. Like he's gained both appearances at the Farmers, has putt well at Riviera, and so like he's young, doesn't have a ton of experience at these events, but the fact that he played this swing back-to-back years and had pretty good finishes at both, and then started the year on a pretty good note. So I don't hate that either. It's, again, the number is not great, but it feels like a week that Theegala could easily compete. So I do not hate that at all. Surprisingly, yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's surprising or not, but he, the model that I made, he ranked 2nd, so I'll feel pretty dumb if I don't take him and he wins.
So we do have a group play on Theegala this week?
We could. Right. We definitely could. Yeah, I mean, he's also, long irons have been great. Plays the long par 4 as well, which is going to be a key test here. Pretty strong around the green game and has putt well on California POA. So it feels like a good move. So maybe I should just buckle up and take it. So let's do it.
I love it.
All right, fuck it. Let's take it. All right. So he was really the next guy. I mean, I'm not super interested in Eric Cole. It seemed, people love him. This doesn't seem like a course that a 5'7", 140-pound guy is going to win. So,
is that actually his measurements?
I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's probably pretty close. But But yeah, not super interested in him. He's 5'9", so
Buck 40.
if he's 5'9" on Wikipedia, he's probably 5'7" in real life. So
yeah, that's fair.
And then yeah, I've seen some people on Moronk. I've seen people on Straka.
You're actually not far off. He's 155 pounds on Wikipedia.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, dude, he's
a real pipsqueak.
He's a tiny dude.
Yeah.
But he can still put it out there. Though, don't get me wrong. It's just when I look at it, it's not someone I imagine winning this event. But
yeah.
But I mean, Patrick Reed and Snedeker are not exactly bodybuilders. Yeah. So and then it's funny because Straka and Moronk are kind of more of that ilk where it's like just big boy golf, where I could see that, like, you know, they're going to be strong out of the rough. They're longer players off the tee. I guess I just don't really love either of them at those numbers. But we talk about this guy all the time. You kind of mentioned him at the beginning of this week and then kind of took a few steps back. But I think I'm going to go with Harris English this week. Similar, I mean, we haven't really mentioned this, but this is like, you know, not a major type test, but I mean, U.S. Open obviously was played here in 2021. It has the same types of vibes where you really aren't, you try not to give things away, really just grinding to make pars and get birdies when they're available. And Harris has been that kind of player for some time now. And we've kind of seen him get off to a pretty good start this year, you know, 14th at the Tournament of Champions and 10th at the Sony Open. He has solid course history here. He hasn't played well of late, missed his last two cuts, but finished runner-up in 2015, 14th in 2017, 8th in 2018. And Harris has had a pretty weird career. I mean, he's had some ups and downs where he seems like he's actually an elite golfer, and then he's lost it for months on end where he looks like he'll never win a tournament again. So I think that we're going to get a good Harris English this year, and this week in particular is like one of those courses that I kind of trust him to really plod along and not put himself in too much trouble. And he's kind of like nothing is, I guess, he's not super long off the tee. He's not the best long iron player, but he's a pretty strong putter, and he does the other things good enough to, for whatever reason, in these tougher events, kind of just hang around. So not the best number, but 50-1, I'll take a shot at Harris.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with Harris. I mean, I don't even think the number's that bad. He's I think it is a good fit for him. I mean, obviously he played well here at the U.S. Open. He's a guy that, like you said, he's the dependable putter. He's pretty unfazed out here in an event where, like, you're going to be making bogeys and stuff. He's not a guy that's going to get super emotional about it and fall out of a tournament. He's pretty calm out there.
He's very stoic.
Yeah, he's very, like, he can be. If you just look at him, you don't know whether he's playing well or playing bad. He just kind of keeps the same face on, chews on his gum, and goes about his day.
Yeah.
But the thing that's a little bit concerning about Harris is, like, I feel like a lot of his good work lately, and correct me if I'm wrong, has been like with the putter, and it is a little bit nerve-wracking on, like, one of the longest, toughest courses on the PGA Tour. In the regular rotation, non-major, I feel like he's gonna sort of need to pick it up a little bit with his irons. And I don't know if this is necessarily like the best spot to try to find the iron play. If you can talk me out of this, I'm more than happy to jump on him. But
yeah, well, so I'll say, it's weird. His schedule, like, he didn't play a ton of fall swing events. So I mean, he played the RSM in November. He gained 2.5 strokes off the tee, lost a stroke on approach, putted well, finished 28th. We saw him have a pretty strong end of the year, finished 10th at the BMW, where he did lose strokes on approach and gain strokes putting. So you're not wrong. In the recent form, he's gained a ton of strokes putting. Even at the U.S. Open last year, he gained a ton of strokes putting. But the approach play hasn't been horrible. And I kind of, like I mentioned, I mean, he hasn't been great around the green, but he's been solid. Like, he doesn't lose a ton, and he's been good off the tee. So I think that's kind of what he's going to need to do this week, is give himself opportunities off the tee, and hope he can find something with the irons. And then, yeah, I mean, he finished 12th at the Genesis last year. Again, another California test with POA greens. So I see what you're saying, but he did gain, almost a stroke on approach at the Sony Open. So
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I like Harris. So if it's, I have some openings on my card because, to be completely honest, we talked about this before. I have Keegan and I have Sahith, and then I have a giant gap that I need to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with, and then I have 2 long shots. So Harris is definitely not out of the question. I just wish he was like hitting the irons a little bit better.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. So he's gonna have to at least turn that on to a certain degree to get in the mix. But like you mentioned, he's just kind of a plod along guy, doesn't get too emotional. So I feel like this is a perfect setup for him, and he's had success here in the past. So I'll take my shot. But now we're over 50, 55 to 100, probably 15 guys. Will Zalatoris, like we mentioned, lost in the playoff to Luke List here. He's a 55 to 1. Some other notable names: Justin Rose, Hideki Matsuyama at 65, Shane Lowry, Keith Mitchell, Luke List between 70 and 75, C. Bez, who finished runner-up last week at 75, our guy Daniel Berger at 80, and then a slew of guys who we've definitely taken at 100 to 1 and above. So do you have anyone between 50 and 100 before we get to true long shots?
I don't know. I could be talking to some guys. I mean, I think that Hideki's at an interesting number. It's not like he's been really inspiring too much lately, but 65 is a pretty big number. He's played pretty well here before in the past. I don't know.
So we have 2 former champions, Luke List and Justin Rose, who are both 65, 75. And then Hideki, who, like you said, has had success here. Yeah, it's tough. I'm having a tough time not taking Luke List, which is probably dumb, but 75 to 1. This is, man, yeah, it's really the only, because I was actually, that was part of the reason that I definitely took him live that week, because I probably talked about him and then didn't take him. And then he was at a decent number, I think on a Friday or Saturday morning maybe, and I got him. But this is like, this is a perfect course for Luke List because he is long off the tee. He does hit his long approach as well. And for whatever reason, he's putt well here. And I think, like I was trying to mention earlier with the putting variance, it's like no one's really going to be putting the lights out. These greens are super tough. So I think it just narrows his margin where it's like he's not going to be losing a ton of strokes on the greens. Well, I mean, he definitely could, don't get me wrong. But if he has an average week putting, like he's going to be in a much better spot than he typically is on courses where other guys putt the lights out. So that's where I'm at with him. And then I'm definitely intrigued with Rose and Matsuyama. I think they're in a board that doesn't have great numbers. They're both pretty good numbers.
This is a weird range. I mean, there's a lot of guys that are into play. Even I guess, are we just on a sit and wait with Zalatoris right now?
Yeah, I really thought about him a lot this week too.
Because there's him. This is a good fit for him. I mean, obviously, this is a tough event to win in general. I think it's going to be a lot more challenging for him this week, especially that time off. It tends to kind of take a while to get your short game back, and he'll probably need that significantly more this week than what we saw at the Amex. What about a guy Shane Lowry is not a guy that we tend to like. If I don't have money on him, I kind of don't root for him at all. But he is intriguing, a guy that can kind of scramble his way around and grind his way out of things. 70 to 1. I mean, he's not really playing great, but he's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he's not super long off the tee, but he's definitely not short by any means. He does hit long irons pretty well. He does have a pretty good short game. The putter can be an issue, but he's actually putted pretty well here. He hasn't played here in 5 years, which is kind of surprising. But he has 2 top 13 finishes, so it's like definitely a course and tournament that sets up well for him. And low-key, he had a pretty good 2023. I mean, 16th at the Masters, 20th at the U.S. Open, 12th at the Scottish Open, 5th at the Honda, 16th at the Masters. I mean, he is one of those guys that plays well in these tougher events. Are we going to get on Shane Lowry?
Are we going to do Shane Lowry? I mean,
man. You know, and it's funny because actually last week he missed a cut. I think he missed a cut on the number or right around the number. And for good reason, he got dismissed last week because he's not a birdie fest type guy. But I was like, you know what? He's not playing bad. Like I like to see him at least. It would have probably been nice to see him make the cut, but maybe we see him at a little bit different number. But if there was a place to take Shane Lowry, it'd probably be at one of these type of events. And it's a pretty good number.
Yeah, maybe the miscut's not the worst thing. I mean, he got his normal rest, Wednesday start, Saturday finish. You know, he's not in the best physical shape. Extra day could do him some favors.
Yeah, I mean, I like the horses at this type of course. He's a little chunkier than I'd probably prefer. Like Luke Liss is in a little better shape, but a much better shape actually. But yeah, I mean, we could be onto something here.
I feel like we have to do it now.
All right, well, let's just do it. Yeah, 70 to 1. I mean, that's not. I have room for a 70 to 1 ad.
Perfect. So do I.
All right. I guess let's just fire away then. I have another, what I like to call hoss on the radar here. Ryan Fox, big New Zealand guy, just a big dude, hits the ball long, doesn't play a lot of PGA Tour golf, but he's had plenty of success on the DP World Tour. I mean, he finished second back in October at the Alfred Dunhill Links. He won the BMW PGA back in September. I feel like this is a course that's going to set up really well for Ryan Fox, and it's interesting because I really don't typically ever take him, but you know, again, another guy who hasn't played this event before, so I'm a little bit nervous about that, I guess, but I just feel like his game sets up well for this course. He's very good on the long par fours, long off the tee, long irons are solid. His approach game's solid. I mean, he's definitely a true long shot in this type of event, but I'm going to take my shot on Ryan Fox this week.
I feel like I mean, I don't know this, so I'm kind of making this up, but I feel like he's probably used to some sloppy, grinded out type of events, right?
Yeah, he should be. I mean, in probably a different style. Like, I mean, California golf is very different from European golf, but yeah, it's really pure feel on Ryan Fox for me this week.
All right.
I don't have like a ton. I mean, he ranked out really well for me because, I mean, like I said, he's definitely above average off the tee, plays well on difficult courses, good long iron player, good on the longer par fours, should shape up pretty well for a course like this.
Hey, why not?
Yeah.
Why not bet of the week?
Yeah, why not bet of the week? I mean, I might have a couple more why not bets of the week, but well, at least I have at least one more.
Yeah, I've two guys here floating around 100 that I'm going to go to. Actually, I'm trying to find one of them.
So while you're getting that, I mean, we said we were going to talk about Daniel Berger again. Him and Zalatoris played 3 rounds together last week, and I mean, all things considered, they both looked pretty good. They both made the cut and then played solid on Sunday. I mean, Berger ended up finishing 39th. I think Zalatoris might have been in the 20s, but I think both of them we said to keep an eye on, and it does make me a little nervous because we actually are getting solid numbers on both of them this week. But I think it's probably still too early, especially for Berger. This is only his second start. If I were to bet between the two of them, I would probably take Zalatoris over Berger, but pretty good starts.
Yeah, I would say too. This is not necessarily not that Berger can't win here, but I don't know if this is necessarily his style course. He's more of like a shorter accuracy type guy, and in like a long wet track. I don't know if this is like the place where he's going to break out and get a win.
Yeah,
but I would like to see him play like decently well, and then we have a couple events coming up that are going to suit him a lot better that I think could be intriguing.
Well, why don't we just make an agreement that we're going to bet him next week?
Yeah, is he in though?
I don't know. I would hope so.
Yeah, I guess he won recently, but it's elevated, so I don't know how that works. But he's won that event recently, so I don't know if that automatically gets him in or not.
It's a good question. a very good question.
But regardless, we should definitely take him at like
Yeah. Well, my point was going to be that I hope that he plays poorly this week. I don't even want to see anything.
True, and we can get him at like 150 to 1
right.
or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you just mentioned, this is really not a course for him. I mean, yeah, like being in the fairways here definitely would help, but it's hard to hit the fairways regardless if you're accurate or not. And he's not a super long guy, and his long irons are not necessarily a giant strength of his. So, yeah, get him next week at a place, a tournament he loves. So
yeah, I mentioned maybe he will be in because I mean he won that event a couple years ago, so he might have like an exemption for the next couple of years. I don't know how that works, but
I mean, 2021 champion you would think would be invited.
You would think he'd be in.
Yeah, because what is it? The top 30 automatically get invited. Because that's why JT isn't playing this week because he qualified for the elevated events and that's why he's not playing because he doesn't want to play 5 weeks in a row. He's going to play next week, and then he's going to play Phoenix, and then he's going to play the Genesis. So that's the reason why he's not here, which not to backtrack too much, but I think that means that Cantlay is probably not playing in Phoenix in a couple weeks. Like he's probably going to play Pebble and then play Riviera and skip Phoenix. So
if next week we're playing. Yeah, we're playing.
Yeah.
I'll get into. I'm gonna go back to this guy, and I mean, I'm waiting for him to kind of break out a little bit more. Billy Horschel back to triple digits.
Wow. All right. I was trying to guess where you're going to go here. I was thinking either Horschel or Pendrith or not Pendrith, Svensson.
Yeah, Horschel. I just feel like the number's not right. Like there's a lot of guys that we have already discussed, and it's like he's kind of trending in the right direction. If he turns it around a little bit, like Horschel was bad last year, but hasn't been that bad in like 5 months now. He's really started to play a little bit better. And granted, it's not like he's playing great. That's why he's at triple digits, but he's definitely starting to trend in a better direction. This is a guy who made the President's Cup 2 years ago. I mean, he won in the last couple of years the Memorial, and he won the match play. Like he's capable of winning an event like this. Triple digits. He has a decent history here. I mean, it's not like we've seen a ton from him, but it might just be a case of kind of catching him before the number completely, shifts down. Because I could see him if he plays well in these next couple of weeks, he gets to Florida and he's back to like, half of this number.
Yeah. Wait, so you're saying he's been playing well?
It's better than he was.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what he played a couple times in Europe. I mean,
he played in Europe.
He missed the cut last week, which I guess we're betting on Shane Lowry. You also missed the cut last week.
He was top 20 in the Sony.
Yeah.
Not that that's like something to write home about.
No, it's just weird. He's only played 3 events since October.
Well, he played 3 times in Europe.
True.
So.
But were they good?
Yeah, they were fine. I mean, not like he wasn't like close to taking it home, but
right. No, it is fair. I mean, you could expect him in a range with like Lowry and Rose, and I mean, I think Hideki and Rose are probably a little bit better of a. I mean, I think they're overall have had much better careers, but yeah. All right. I mean, you're sticking to your guns. I'm like I told you last time you took Horschel. I'm off for a while, but maybe this is the week. I will say he did not model out well for me because he's not hit his long irons well, and his approach game's been bad. But it's also pulling statistics from a pretty long time ago, so I wouldn't harp on that too much. Has he played well in California?
I think he's got pretty good like track record here. I don't know if I'm completely wrong on that or not, but I feel like I saw that when I looked that up today.
All right, yeah. I mean, 11th, 8th, 2 8ths, and 11th. Yeah, all right. Yeah. Interesting. That's more. Obviously, he's kind of more of the. If he wins, it'd be probably more of like the Patrick Reed type win, but like he's gonna have to his short games have to be good, but he could pull it off. He's won tougher events, like you mentioned. I mean, the Memorial. What else has he won?
Yeah, it's like weird. I mean, he's won some playoff events, which is kind of crazy.
Right. The BMW, yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, it's weird. I feel like every time because we used to take him like kind of a lot, and then like when we least expected it, he would just pop up a win. I mean, that's definitely we're not suspecting it coming off of like the worst season of his career, but yeah, I mean, I think he's capable of winning this event, which I don't know how many guys at triple digits I could say that about.
That's fair. All right, so I kind of had a Freudian slip just a few minutes ago when I mentioned Pendrith instead of Svensson, but I'm taking Pendrith. 110 to 1. On paper, very good course for him. Obviously, long off the tee. Has putt well in California. Very good on the long par fours. Strong long iron game. Strong approach game. I don't have a ton of faith in Taylor Pendrith potentially taking home one of these, but if we're going to be at a place, I think it's going to be a place where his distance off the tee gives him some big advantages. So, yeah, I mean, finished 16th here in 2022. Played well at AT&T. Played well at the Pebble Beach last year. Finished 7th. Putted really well. So feels comfortable on the greens. He's one of those guys. I think kind of like a poor man's Wyndham Clark at this point, where he can get really hot with the putter.
Yeah, definitely poor.
Yeah, well, I mean, but until Wyndham Clark had won last year, I think they were pretty comparable.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah. So now he's a poor man's Wyndham Clark, but yeah, he's I don't know. Pendrith pops out to me a lot, so I'm going to take him 110 to 1 and feel no shame in doing so. He's also one of those guys now. I mean, we do this every week, but like guys that we've taken or have talked about, and then they have a really good Thursday, and I'm like, fucking A, it's going to be the week. It's going to be the week that Pendrith does it, and then inevitably it's not. But long shot season has been upon us. I'm going to take a couple shots here. So,
no, I think it's fair. When you get down here, I mean, Pendrith has been your guy, and he's got some game. It's weird. I feel like we've just kind of been like whiffing on like his weeks because he has played well some weeks, and I feel like at least me, I'm never in line with when he's.
Yeah, I mean, well, and of late, I mean, 2023 into this year. I mean, he finished 10th at the Sony recently, putted really well, was good off the tee. Actually, no, not great off the tee. Good on approach. Gained 3 strokes on approach. But then, we've seen him play well in lesser events like the Barbasol. He finished 6th. Rocket Mortgage 14th. The Butterfield Bermuda, he was 8th. So, in terms of field strength, this is probably not a great. He just hasn't been in contention with some big guys before, but. What better time than now?
Well, yeah, I got one more. You have more?
I have another thought, which is not going to be surprising. So you go first.
Well, this one might not be too surprising either. I got to go back. I'm going back to my guy again. 150 to 1, Sam Ryder.
Okay.
So last week, shook off some cobwebs. First event of 2024. We, thanks to Fantasy National, don't have Sharks game data. At least we didn't when I looked up earlier. So obviously 2 of the courses don't have it, but
yeah, so it wouldn't even matter. To be
honest. So we would only have it for the 2 rounds of the stadium course anyway. Not a great finish for him, but my point from last week still stands that now in terms of measure statistics, he's gained on approach in 8 straight. So that he did not lose out on that stat. He has good finishes here. He was 4th here last year. He actually looked like he was like maybe going to get it done on the back 9 on Sunday. And then remember his mom like jinxed the shit out of him in that interview?
Yeah.
Like she was just like going on about like, I knew he was going to like win this week. Like, whoa, we have like a little bit of golf left to be played.
Yeah.
Mrs. Ryder was like, sharpening that one in a little bit early, and then he blew it down the stretch. But he did play well for like, a good 63 holes. And he was top 10 in 2021 here as well. So he's got, pretty good track record at this course.
Yeah, that actually is probably a way better case than the guy that I'm going to mention. And again, this is Friday morning quarterback, Scott Stallings, 200 to 1. Former champion, won all the way back in, I don't know, like 2012 maybe.
He won this event?
Scott Stallings, 2014, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And then he finished runner-up in 2015. So, he it's funny because he played really well on Thursday last week at the Amex and then missed the cut. So
Yeah, you were like a little bit worried earlier.
yeah, I was definitely worried about that because I talked about him last week. He was over 200 to 1 as well. So I think this week probably makes a little bit more sense since considering he has won here and did finish runner up in back-to-back years. He putted the lights out the year he won and putted really well the next year. Finished 25th in 2016, and then it's kind of been missed cuts and 40 place finishes. But it's weird because as I mentioned last week about Stallings, I feel like he's kind of a hot and cold guy, but he had a nice stretch back in 2022 where he was really hot. 2023 wasn't great. But we're not too far removed from, he finished second in the Sanderson. So obviously the game is not super far off, even though he did miss the cut last week. And then I guess I mean, he is relatively long off the tee, plays his long approach shots. Yeah, he's huge. It's crazy though, because recently putting on POA, very bad. Last 36 rounds, he's almost dead last in his field, but he has putted really well on his service before. So hopefully you can just wipe the memories of all the bad times and go back to 2015. So, yeah, I mean, why not? We've had back-to-back guys at over 400 to 1 win. So why not have a guy at 200 to 1 who's won here before and within the last 2 years has played good golf. So, Scott Stallings. Let's wrap things up. We've kind of really dragged us on a little bit, but I guess I still have some decisions to make. But as of now, Minwoo, Finau, Thigala, Harris, and then the team Shane Lowry play, Ryan Fox, Jesus, Pendrith, and Stallings. Yeah, I got a long list of guys here, so I'm gonna have to make some adjustments here because I also said I was gonna take Luke List. So
the team Shane Lowry play has a chance to be like a historic.
Yeah, moment. If Shane Lowry wins this week, we really just hit the nail on the head there.
We're gonna be like Lowry guys.
Yeah.
So far,
if he wins this week, I'm definitely gonna be a Shane Lowry
guy. Yeah. So far, I have Keegan, Sahith. I might get there on Harris, even though I have some doubts about his iron play, but we've had some success on group plays on Harris before. So we might have to do whatever to kind of get back in the winner's circle here.
We need the mojo.
Shane Lowry, then I'm going to go Billy Horschel and Sam Ryder deep. But yeah, we need to win this week, Owen.
Yeah, we need to win this week. So I'm going to have to make a cut somewhere along the lines. And then I'm actually off to a pretty good start in one and done. Poston, I ended up going with last week. A little bit of disappointing on Sunday. Could have gone a little bit lower, but I'm inside the top 500. It's crazy. Nemeo one and done 2 weeks in a row. It's only been 2 weeks, and no one has picked the winning player, which, I mean, makes sense. There's some 4,000 some odd people. No one picked Grayson, Murray, or Nick Dunlap. Both went off over 400 to 1. So really anyone's ball game early in a one and done. I am kind of between a few guys. I may kind of pivot. Tons of people took Sungjae last week. He was like 20% owned. I may kind of just try to ride him. And this isn't like a, I guess, perfect course for him, but similar to
pretty well here.
Yeah, and similar to the other guys at the top of the board. I mean, he has a very well-rounded game. He's not very long off the tee, but does hit his long irons well. He putts pretty well on POA. I just feel like he's going to be pretty low owned, and maybe that's not my best idea. And he may not be low owned. He's finished 4th and 6th here in his last 2 years. So we didn't really talk about him as one of those guys at 20 to 1, but yeah.
Well, he pissed me off last week, so I'm back out on him.
I mean, he didn't play that bad.
But yeah, it's just like, it's so classic. Like, you think he's back into it, and then like he just didn't do anything on the back nine on Saturday, and
yeah,
just uninspiring.
Yeah, did he finish inside the top 20? I think he did. No,
he was. Yeah, he might have. Yeah, he was just.
No, he was 25th. But yeah, I kind of hear what you're saying. But yeah, and that's what happens in golf betting. You kind of get turned off. Like if Sam Burns was playing this week, I wouldn't be taking him. But I think you got to kind of wash away some weeks, and especially last week, just a shitty event.
I was. This is the
there's
funny thing.
just not a lot to take home from that. Like, you know what I mean? 3 super easy courses, absolute birdie fests, whatever.
Yeah, this is a much better event.
Yeah. All right. Well, we appreciate you all for listening. Obviously, again, go check out all of our colleagues over at rotoballer.com/PGA. We'll be here next week and into the California swing. We continue. Let's get some winners. It's been a painful start in terms of the outright betting market, but I'm feeling some good vibes coming. So we'll talk to you guys next week. And again, thanks for listening.